Hi, welcome back to the Counterfeit Emotions podcast. I'm Curtis Morley, and I'm an emotionologist. And thank you so much for tuning in each week and for subscribing and clicking that bell because that means we get to help more people. Today, I'm super excited because I have a friend and colleague from my old Franklin Covey days, Kristin Mackey, with us. She's also the author of the book Frequency Matters. She's a speaker, she's a trainer, she's a cartoonist, and she's an incredible deep thinker, which we love to have on the show. So today we're going to talk about the frequency of emotions and how frequency matters in life, in emotions, the particles. We'll talk about particles, and we're going to have a really fun discussion, but it's also going to be a meaningful discussion to figure out how to transcend, how to rise above the things that keep us down. Today, we're going to talk about trauma and a very unique concept called positive trauma. So make sure to stay till the end of the episode because Kristin actually gives us the formula to how to change trauma to positive trauma. And so today we've got Kristin Mackey. Thank you so much for joining us, Kristin.
Oh, thank you, Curtis. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. And tell us about give everybody just a little history about you so they can get to know you. And specifically, like wow, how did you come about studying frequency? Like that's so fascinating how you got from, growing up to now.
Yeah, no, of course. I was very sensitive, or I should say, I am very sensitive. And as a child, I always was curious about the nature of life, the nature of reality. And it was an odd thing. Had this sort of ability to feel into people, to feel into my environment, so much so that it would hurt because I would feel their feelings, and I wanted to understand why I was feeling what I was feeling. So I became this researcher of life. I read so many books. I lived in the bookstore. I was very curious about, what makes me feel the way I feel and the experiences I'm having. And it was such that I would feel this. This is kind of humorous, but I would feel sad for trash if someone would throw trash away. I would that sensitive. Is that the fate that little can on the ground had for itself? So it was something that was always inside of me, and I always wanted to know why certain things led me in one direction or another. So that is sort of my journey to understanding what led me to frequency.
So that scene in Toy Story where they're leaving the box of toys on the side of the
Oh,
road and Sarah McLachlan starts singing and like, was that just
yeah.
heart-wrenching? Was that
Yes,
just
absolutely. I was, and my nephew is the same way. I was that child that would line up all my stuffed animals so that they would be comfortable. But it was just, it was a level of sensitivity that isn't necessarily useful as you get older. As a child, it's one thing. So as I matured, and I would get intuitive hits, you might say, or a feeling about something, and
Mm.
sometimes it was right, and sometimes it was wrong, and I was very confused. Why is it accurate, and sometimes it's not so accurate? So I started to really read about science and physics and the nature of just psychology. What am I thinking that's causing me to think some of these things? So that was kind of the journey I had.
That's wonderful.
Hmm.
And and it sounds like that you wanted, and tell me if I'm getting this
Hmm.
correct, that you wanted to in a way figure out how to manage all of those really big emotions, those sensitive emotions, and how to figure those out. Is
Hmm.
that kind of part of the journey?
Absolutely, 100%. I wasn't able to find one answer. It was too deep. It was too complex. So I would
Mm.
look into psychology, and it only hit a certain level. And then I would look into just being intuitive, the books and the resources around being intuitive and intuition itself. And that stopped where I needed to go. I'm a very spiritual person. I went to a private school. I was very spiritual. I had a very deep religious roots. And that also came up, where I battled, this camp or this camp. So it really was trying to figure out, how do I integrate all of these different things that I'm feeling, that my mind, my intellect is understanding, my research is telling me, but my body is also going in the opposite direction intuitively. And there was just so much, as you beautifully put, emotion to it. There's just so many emotions that we have that if we go down the rabbit hole of one emotion, it may not give us the clarity that we need. So looking at all of it, integrating all of it, and really embodying all of it is what led me to particles and subatomic particles and frequency, the energy of life itself.
Wow. And and to dive into that,
Yeah.
well, actually, let me ask you one question before we dive into that. For those that are listening that feel that
Hmm.
feel incredibly sensitive to other people's emotions, and
Hmm.
feel incredibly sensitive to, and maybe even overwhelmed with their sensitivity,
Hmm.
what two pieces of advice could you give somebody that is incredibly sensitive?
The first piece of advice would be self acceptance, to see it as a gift. It's a gift. And even though, if you are very sensitive, you're going to invite individuals that aren't so sensitive. And they may say or do things that hurt, or they may make decisions that aren't necessarily in alignment with your decisions. There's a lot of energy around projection. The school of thought around projection, where somebody projects negative qualities onto someone. We can also project our good qualities onto someone. And a sensitive person too often will do that. Well, I don't think that way, or I
Mhm.
wouldn't do that, or I don't feel that way. And so really recognizing that it is a gift, and to treat it as a gift, and to be a good steward of that gift. So first would be to acknowledge it as a gift, and the second would be to be a good steward of that gift. And
Mm.
that is what led me to truly teach about particles and feelings and frequency, because being a good steward of that gift allows you to truly help people, because you don't get wrapped up in entanglement, you might say,
Mhm.
and wrapped up in an energy that may not resonate with your value system. And it's so easy to do that. So when someone is very sensitive, great boundaries are important. Recognizing what is mine, what is someone else's, how to really manage. It's not perfect. It's not perfect your particles. It's not organize or control your feelings. We never want to control them, because we're just pushing them down. But
Yeah.
if we honor them and we respect them and we embody all of those feelings, and we are a good steward of them, then we become um, a sort of force of nature, because we're able to really feel someone without losing ourselves, and bring up the beauty of kindness, and the beauty of attunement, and the beauty of truly understanding the totality of the person in front of me, or the totality of even the team I'm working with, or the totality of the organization. When we don't honor it as a gift, we're always on the defense. We're always scared or worried that someone is going to trip us up, because we feel that.
Mhm.
And if we're not a good steward of our gift of being very sensitive, or some might say overly sensitive, we run the risk of being too sensitive and reading into something that may or may not be there. And so I hope that answered it, but they're the two key things: is seeing it as a gift and cherishing it as a gift, so that you can truly make a difference in the people that are in your life.
So for those that are extra sensitive, or
Yes.
consider themselves maybe empaths,
Mhm.
or just have that sensitivity, the two things that they could do most is, number one, accept it,
Mhm.
and number two is to cherish it and
Yes.
see it as a gift. That sensitivity is part of their superpowers,
Mhm.
that they can then relate to people in a deep sense, that they can see people in ways that maybe others can't.
Yes. And it's interesting, Curtis, because I often find, when I work in universities and with students, when I bring up sensitivity, when I bring up in these programs, it's okay to be you. It's okay to be the fullness of who you are, all the feelings that you have, what you're bringing to a space, that is okay. I could feel as the facilitator, everyone just, oh, just okay. I can
Yeah.
be me, and being at such a young age now, cutting their teeth and getting into the world, they feel someone sees me. Someone is seeing me, and they're acknowledging, all that I am. I'm safe to be me. I'm free to be me, and catching someone so young going into their world, going into the world, and making contributions, and they have a comfort level being themselves. It's beautiful. I could feel them feel relief when I would say that. And so more and more I would find myself, when I teach frequency matters, or I teach some of these principles, the first thing I say is, let's just talk about how it's okay to be sensitive. There's nothing, with the beautiful work that you talk about, Curtis, there's nothing shameful in being
Yeah.
sensitive. It's a superpower. It's a gift, and it will allow you to see human beings' truth. And in one of my first books, You Can, You Will, You Did, Micro Changes for Macro Transformation, I talk about really looking for the truest truth in a situation. And folks would say, well, what is the truest truth? The truest truth is what is in that moment. It's the totality of what is in the moment. And if we are distracted, if we are self-conscious, if we are in our second mind, where we have all these thoughts, am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? Is this right? Or all that stuff, emotionally, mentally, and even our belief systems come up. When we're caught up in all of that, we can't attune. And when we don't have an ability to attune, we don't have the ability to anchor to the truest truth in that space.
And would you say that that attunement requires being present?
Yes.
That you have to be in the moment
Mm-hmm.
to find true attunement?
100%.
One of my favorite sayings is that perplexing on the past
Mm-hmm.
produces pain, fretting on the future fuels fear.
Yeah.
Only the present provides peace and power.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Beautiful.
believe that. I believe that being in the moment
Mm-hmm.
is where we find our true self. That's where we find our authentic self. We
Mm-hmm.
talk about counterfeit emotions, and I pinched out the frequency scale, David Hawkins' frequency scale of emotions, and you see at the very bottom is shame. The very top, he put enlightenment. So
Mm-hmm.
the highest frequency that David Hawkins found was enlightenment. They've actually done some studies recently
Mm-hmm.
that said that might not be the top, that there might be one above enlightenment,
Mm-hmm.
and that is authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
That the highest frequency emotion that we can feel
Mm-hmm.
is authenticity.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And authenticity requires presence.
Mm-hmm.
Authenticity, just like you said, requires being in the moment with who you are,
Right.
regardless of what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Is, it may be this great big emotion. Okay,
Right.
then be there. Be
Mm-hmm.
there with that emotion. It may be almost overwhelming, but be there.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying I should or I shouldn't. Actually, you'll never find those two words in anything I write. Unless I'm speaking about those words,
Mm-hmm.
you'll never find the word should or shouldn't in any of my writings. And the reason why is because they produce pain, and they produce shame, and they produce this energy that's abdicating my responsibility for what someone else says I should do,
Mm-hmm.
versus being in that moment and saying, you know what, this is really big. That's true. And I'm going to feel it. I'm going to sit with it. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
honor it,
Mm-hmm.
even if I don't like it,
Right. Right.
even if it may seem overwhelming or so complex. I'm still just going to be present
Mm-hmm.
with that emotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah,
You have to feel it to heal it.
yes,
You have to really feel, because it's energy. It's energy. And so it's in our body. It reminds me of that beautiful book, The Untethered Soul.
Oh,
Isn't that
yes.
good?
So
I
good.
love that book.
Yes.
And I'm dating myself, but I see the energy as little slinkies. You know, that toy. Of course, we always go
The
back to
wound
being
up.
silly with my
Yeah.
work, but the little slinky toy, I see that as little pockets of slinkies in everyone. And so when they don't process their feelings, as you have so beautifully put, the coil gets pushed down and pushed down and pushed down. And so all of these wounds and all of these feelings are like these little slinkies that are getting pushed down. And then someone finds themselves having a conversation with someone, or they get triggered, or a setback happens and they're not aware of it. It hits that little coil, and boom, you get a reaction.
Mm.
And the individual wonders, why did I react that way? Why did I feel that way? What came out of me? And a lot of times, and it's what we talk about with particles, it's an unconscious pocket of energy inside someone, and that event triggers it and they're not even aware of it, and then it just comes out. And then what happens is that emotion comes out, and the person is then, I'm so embarrassed by that emotion. Why did I say that, or why did I do that? And then, as you have put, the shame would come up, or the negative emotion, or the counterfeit
Yeah.
emotion would come up. But really, what they're doing is they're healing themselves. They're in this beautiful process of feeling and releasing and purging energies that are inside of them, maybe for a very long time, very long time. And when it has that opportunity to surface, it's a beautiful opportunity to sweep that away, to cleanse, and to purge. And too often, and what I love about the work that you do, is that someone will feel that negative energy and have shame or embarrassment or have a counterfeit emotion. And then they'll put a cap on the slinky and they'll knock that energy down.
Mm.
And that wonderful opportunity, I call it a kind of a positive trauma. I've had a couple myself where it was this amazing opportunity to have the energy come out, and it's out of my body. I feel fresh. But if I start to get counterfeit emotions to plug all that back down, now that miracle of a healing moment, I'm now getting in the way of that.
Mm.
I'm getting in the way of something bigger that knows better than I do, that's allowing me to heal in that space. So I just love how the counterfeit emotion can come in, and we think it's an emotion that's helpful, but it stops us from really moving
Yeah.
it through.
Yeah, we get into those cycles of disconnection with the
Right.
counterfeits, and I don't think I've ever heard the word positive trauma, and I do a lot of research. So, tell me what you mean by positive trauma.
Yes, it kind of pinned back to how I think life itself is a collection of traumas. All of life, a trauma when we're working out, is we are stretching our muscles and breaking our muscles just a little bit, so then the muscle can build. A big trauma, then all of a sudden we have a tear in the muscle rather than micro movements to allow us to grow. So, positive trauma for me, an example of that, Curtis, would be I was 14 years old and I went to a very small school, and I was on student council on student council. And there was a new principal, and she wanted to get the school all excited. And so I was sitting in the front of the auditorium, and the whole entire school was packed. And she looks at me and she hands me a microphone and she says, Kristin, I want you just to get up there and do an attitude check. I want you to ask everyone to do this attitude check. And I thought, no, 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 no. I don't want to get up there. Number one, if I do get up there, I want to tell everyone this is not my idea. This is your idea, Sister Lillian. This is not my idea. And she always had this adorable little smirk on her face. She knew what she was doing. Wise, very wise. And she says, no, I think get up there and say attitude check in front of the whole school. And then when you're done, I want you to do a chant. So it was getting worse and worse. And this is not good for my brand. I'm 14, 15 years old. It was terrible. So I get up there and every emotion you can imagine I'm feeling now. I'm embarrassed. I was humiliated. I felt shame. Like this isn't my idea. I'm 14, 15. I'm up there and I went with it. Attitude check, and everybody's frozen and they're looking at me like I was crazy. And then I thought, if I'm going to be humiliated, I'm going to do it in a great way. If I'm going to be embarrassed, I'm going to really lean into being embarrassed. I don't do embarrassment halfway. So
You're all in on
I'm
the
all
embarrassment.
in. I mean, if I'm going to wear the T-shirt of embarrassment, humiliation, or shame, we're going to make it a positive thing. So I thought, okay, attitude check, and I get up there and I had fun with it, but all the emotions came in, and I look back. I never was afraid to speak in front of anyone my whole life, and it led me to be a professional speaker
because of that
because
experience.
of that.
And what was the response from the crowd when you said attitude check?
At first, they're all giggling and laughing as children would do, and you're at that age. And the more I got into it and had confidence in being silly, the more folks said, okay, and they started to laugh. And then it was attitude check, let's go St. Joe. And that was kind of the name. And so every event that happened after that, they would, Kristin's going to come up and do attitude check. And I was embarrassed, of course, but it sort of became my brand. And it was fun. It was playful. It was a way of us being silly without it being a negative thing. And so most folks were afraid to publicly speak. And I felt it was one of those defining moments in my life where this wise person came in and was guided, most likely by a higher power, to help me get over what I had to get over fast, because I became a professional speaker at 25, and that's kind of young.
Yeah, that is.
And I had my trials and tribulations, and I was overwhelmed, and I have lots of stories, but that was a positive trauma because so much emotion came out at once. I leaned into, as you have beautifully put, I leaned into the counterfeit and thought, I don't have a choice right now but to be embarrassed. So I might as well enjoy it.
I love that you leaned into that, and this whole idea of positive trauma. Like, is there such a thing as positive trauma? And I love how you described that the positive trauma can help us grow.
Yes.
And thinking about the neuroscience of that is that's the HCC, the anterior mid-cingulate cortex in the brain, which says, here's my comfort zone. Anything outside that, and the ACC has to kick in, provide a little dopamine, and say, okay, we're going to do this. Don't want to, so outside my comfort zone, but I'm going to step into it anyway. Right. And that's one of the key principles of counterfeit emotions is when we feel the counterfeit, ask what its twin is. Who is your twin? So if it's this anxiety, who's your twin? Well, that's called distress. The twin of distress is eustress or excitement. And you said, you know what? I'm going to be goofy. I'm going to be fun. I'm going to be excited. Let's go. And you change that from the counterfeit to its twin, the authentic. And I love how you made that transition from, okay, it's not going to be stress anymore. It's going to be excitement. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I love that you were able to do that. And then went on to become a professional speaker at 25, which is phenomenal. Because most 25-year-olds are not up on big stages.
Yeah, that's why I call it a positive trauma, because I don't believe that if I did not have that experience, I think I would have overthought it. I was, as you put earlier, I'm a deep thinker. I analyze everything. I think through everything. And sometimes, excuse me, we're all guilty of it. We'll overthink ourselves out of a growth opportunity, an opportunity where we need to take that leap, where we need to move forward in a space that may be uncomfortable. And I found it to be positive because, of course, the word trauma has the definition, it's hard to process something, but it allowed me to move into that space and feel comfortable. I don't think I would have become a professional speaker if she did not give me that opportunity. And so,
Wow. Wow.
I think of that, and I think speaking to me, it's less about me. I find that when I speak, I get out of the way. I tend to channel information. I tend to bring in information through me. I always call myself a
Mm.
vessel or a channel of sorts. I attune. I don't think I would have been able to help as many people as I did, or I should say, something came through me to help people if I blocked that with overanalyzing what I felt at that age. I was in a room and someone would pull me aside at lunch or the break, and I felt overwhelmed at 25 when they would say, I went all these years in a legal degree, and I don't know if I want to be a lawyer anymore. And I'm
And
reaching for, what
you're
do I
25.
say? Yeah, exactly. And but my heart was still there. I felt the pain of that person not feeling happy with where they are, what they wanted, or someone was going through a heartbreak, or they were going through situations. And I found that, one, I was not qualified at 25 to be able to give them deep psychological advice. But what I did pick up on is I could give them comfort. I could witness their pain. I think all pain needs a witness.
Mm.
And I could see who they are so that they had the confidence to find it themselves. So by acknowledging their authenticity, you're allowed to have that feeling. If you're feeling that you're not happy in a particular career track, or you're not happy on a trajectory, dig into that. Find out why that's there. It's okay to ask those questions. Instead of me being able to give them that advice, because I wasn't qualified to do that at the time, I am now as I've become seasoned. But at that time, what I had at my disposal was, I want to walk you back to yourself. Because if I walk you back
Mm.
to yourself, you will be authentic. And if you are authentic and you clear your mind from all the things that get in the way, something opens up and you're able to hear something of a greater nature, a sacred nature that can come through. And that will be what facilitates the healing, or the risk that you need to take, or the clarity you need to have, or the healing that you want to experience. But we block it too often.
Yeah.
So that was the positive trauma for me, is it opened up a door to a track for my life.
I love that phrasing. I love that term, that
Oh.
there's positive trauma, that there's these things outside of your comfort zone that are bigger than
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we may even feel like we can handle.
Mm-hmm.
But when we change it from trauma to positive trauma, we can say, I can grow through this. This
Yeah.
is actually for my good.
Right.
And this is something that will turn me into someone that may be a phenomenal vessel
Yeah.
to help other people.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Thank you.
I think I'm going to start using that term,
I love it.
positive trauma.
Oh, wonderful. Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
It's
So with this idea that we need to sit with
mm,
whatever it is,
mhm.
that if it's getting up on stage in front of all your peers as a
Right.
14-year-old, prime time for all of the peer pressure and everything else, then as well as maybe a big life decision, or
Mhm.
maybe a mistake in your life where
Mhm.
you feel a lot of hidden shame,
Mhm.
where you feel like you can't release that.
Right.
I love how you put it, that and if I could rephrase it for my brain,
Yeah.
is eliminating the resistance.
Mhm.
And I picture a river of water, and resistance says, I'm going to put my stake in the shore, I'm going to tie my rope, and I'm going to try and push myself upstream.
Mhm.
And there's so much effort, and it's so tiring, and it's so exhausting, and we don't ever move.
Right.
Whereas if we let go of the resistance and we flow with
Mhm.
life, then instead of all of that, sure, there's still going to be, you still got to balance on the water. I imagine I'm on an inner tube and I'm
Mhm.
floating down the river, and it's joyful.
Right,
And maybe sometimes there'll be a little, a
right.
little bump or a little wave, and that's okay.
Mhm,
But instead of the resistance, the constant effort, and being just flooded with all of this, flowing with it,
mhm,
just accepting the journey of life, accepting that some things are hard, some
mhm,
things are embarrassing, some things are overwhelming,
mhm.
and just saying, I'm going to flow with it.
Right.
And you said something so powerful. Every pain needs a witness.
Mhm.
Dig deeper into that.
Yeah.
That was wow. When you said that, it hit.
Oh, well, thank you. Pain, a lot of times, is something we don't want to talk about. We're feeling it. Many times, an individual will express pain in embarrassing ways. They'll cry loudly, or they'll do something that they perceive as embarrassing. So they bury their emotions, and they hide their emotions, and they hide who they are. When someone is going through a profound pain, and there is someone that really witnesses it, not intellectually witnesses it or psychologically witnesses it, but at a frequency level,
Mm,
at an energetic level, where they're able to recognize, I see and can feel something similar that you are experiencing or have experienced. There's language around compassion. I always say compassion is the state of being and kindness is the action. The state of being
mm,
is compassion, and compassion is the ability to feel the same pain that someone is feeling, to be able to say, I know how you feel. I know what that is like. And because I'm witnessing that in you, there's nothing to hide. There's nothing to hide. And too often I see individuals, are so afraid of what they feel that they will have all of these habits, or they will get lost in an addiction, or they'll get lost in something that will just hide this pain that they're feeling. And many times they have gone to someone they love to express it, and it wasn't seen, or it was not witnessed. It was judged, or it was rejected, or it wasn't witnessed in the way, at the level that it would need to be witnessed. And they feel overwhelmed, and they think, I'm holding all of this pain and I don't know what to do with it, so I'm going to escape it. And I think most human beings, and this is going to be a bold statement, but most human beings are living through infinite levels of trauma, small, medium, and large traumas, positive traumas, profound traumas that take an incredible amount of resilience to get over, medium. All of that is energy that hits us, and we're trying to navigate it. We're trying to sort it. We're trying to put it in boxes. But what I love about what you said, Curtis, is we can't put life in a box. We have to sort of flow with life. And when
yeah.
we release that resistance and we flow, the energy comes up. And when that energy comes up, we can witness it in another. Um, Pain needs an individual to see and feel the depth of what that person is feeling. And when someone is able to do that, that person perceives themselves as existing. Their pain is not, I made a mistake, or I am the mistake. I am the error. I am the addiction. I am the issue that they may have. That is something they're experiencing to cope with it. And when someone can see the M part of them, that they are actually beautiful and perfect and lovely just as they are in their authenticity, once you see a soul or a person, once you can see who they are, it's almost impossible to not see how beautiful they are. They're just beautiful, and everything else is just noise. It's just noise. It's what they've read, or what how they were brought up, and now you're triggering me because I'm attuning to you, and it's showing up in your eyes and it's showing up in mine, and that's what attunement is. It's the ability to recognize that, um, at the core of humanity is beauty. That's what exists. And an ability to see that in someone else means you have to be fearless to be able to see it, to be able to witness it. And everything else is much easier. I don't know if that made sense.
It makes so much sense because everyone is beautiful.
Right.
I truly believe there's no such thing as a bad person,
Mm-hmm.
that everyone has divinity,
Mm-hmm.
that there is a brilliant diamond
Mm-hmm.
inside their soul that's untarnishable, that's unbreakable, that is the authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, there's actions that are harmful, actions that are destructive, actions that are hurtful,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not the person. The person is that untarnishable, unbreakable diamond inside.
Mm-hmm.
That's their true self, their
Mm-hmm.
authentic self.
Right.
That when we can see that, when we can see another, even in their pain,
Mm-hmm.
even in their destructive behaviors,
Right.
we can see that diamond.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we see truth.
Oh, that's stunning. That is absolutely stunning. That is when we see truth. I don't think better words have been spoken, Curtis, because that is the nature of the human being, is that they are that beautiful, the truth of who they are. And too often folks get lost. And especially today, there's so much in the world that we are exposed to. Our brains are being impacted by so much content. Our lives are being overwhelmed just in everyday living. And if we have this ability to anchor to the truth of a human being, it means, I would like to share, it means we have an ability to see the truth in ourselves.
Yes.
And when we
Yes.
have that sort of self acceptance and self love, that, we love ourselves, we truly love who we are, we know we're good,
Hmm.
we then have an ability to see the truth and witness the pain and witness the slinkies, you might say, in another human being. We can witness it. But that only comes from a true ability to see the beauty of the self, too. The
Yeah.
ability to see that. And
Yeah.
that's authenticity.
Yeah. And since you went to
Hmm.
St. Joe's, I'm sure
Yeah.
you're familiar with the scripture
Hmm.
that talks about the two great commandments.
Hmm.
And I think that's actually a misnomer.
Hmm.
I don't think there's two. I
Hmm.
think there's three. The first great commandment is, of course, love God with all your heart, mind, and strength.
Hmm.
The second is love your neighbor. But the third is as yourself. I think there's three great commandments, not two. That the third is, in order for me to love you, I have to love me.
Right.
And you cannot love someone more than you love yourself. You
Hmm.
cannot show more kindness to someone else than you can yourself. You can show more niceness.
Right.
You can heap niceness all over them, but you cannot be more kind. You cannot love someone more
Hmm.
than you do for yourself. I believe there's three great commandments, not
I
two.
I love that. And oh my goodness, it just gave me chills because, one of the things I always talk about in You Can, You Will, You Did is to anchor the person back to the self. You can't love someone else more than you love yourself,
Yeah.
because when you look at everyone around you, it is a facet of yourself.
Hmm.
It is a facet of you. And so when you're seeing another individual, that's a version of me with that perspective. And that person is a version of me with that perspective. And that is a version of me with that perspective. And it anchors sort of the particles, the subatomic particles, that this microphone is a part of me. And this desk is a part of me. And then all of a sudden, there's this incredible feeling of all of this is for me.
Hmm.
All of this is for me. Wow, is it not made of love? Everything is love. The chair I'm sitting on is oscillating particles. It's made of love. The microphone, the conversation we're having, everything is love. It's a creative expression of, as you beautifully put, the diamond. It's shades or cuts of a diamond of different perspectives of the same diamond. And so when we see an individual that may be struggling, or they're disconnected from who they truly are, they're disconnected from not only the truth of themselves, but the truth of reality.
Yeah.
The truth, whether it is in the spiritual or sacred camp, or it's in the scientific camp, which is something I've had such passion around, the way you have with the counterfeit emotions. Science and spirituality has always been something deep in my heart. And the science and the spirituality don't argue.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
It's all the same.
Yeah. I love how you did this, that science and spirituality together, because they do. They
Yes.
exist together.
Hmm.
Absolutely. The science and spirituality are not separate. They
Right.
belong together.
Absolutely.
And I want to talk about particles, but before we go there, one concept that listeners
Hmm.
may not be attuned to is metacognition.
Hmm.
We've been talking a lot about it without naming it.
Hmm.
Is the idea that I can be a witness of my emotions.
Hmm.
I can be a witness of my thoughts. I can be a witness of everything outside of me that I'm the diamond. My thoughts are not the diamond. My
Hmm.
emotions are not the diamond. My situation is not the diamond. I'm the diamond, and I can witness all of these aspects, which has a name called metacognition,
Hmm.
of being able to think about your thoughts,
Hmm.
think about your emotions, and separate yourself. And at the beginning of this year, at the beginning of 2026, they did a study, beautiful study,
Hmm.
where they said, what is the number one skill for emotional intelligence?
Hmm.
And they said the number one skill was to be able to feel an emotion without acting on it.
Hmm.
Be able to do what you just said,
Hmm.
witness that emotion without saying, I feel angry,
Hmm.
therefore I'm going to be angry.
Right.
I feel excited, therefore I'm going to act excited. I feel love, I'm going to act, but be able to separate the emotion and say, I feel this. Okay. Now,
Hmm.
what does that mean? And what do I get to do with it? Making a choice between the stimulus and response.
Right.
Being able to say, okay, there's a little gap,
Hmm.
and I'm going to watch this emotion. And then I'm going to choose. Then I'm going to respond.
Hmm.
And this study showed that that was the number one attribute in developing emotional intelligence.
Wow. I love it. It reminds me of being aware of your awareness, being aware of your own thoughts, feelings, and emotions, the way Eckhart Tolle talked about in The Power of Now, where we witness the pain body, for example. We don't identify with it.
Yes,
And that's the
yes,
key. It's
yes.
not,
Is
yeah, go ahead.
removing that label.
Right.
Like, I feel pain, therefore I am pain.
Yes.
And separating yourself
Right.
from the label. Yes, keep going. I love
Yes.
this.
No, of
I
course.
love what you're sharing.
We too often an individual will say, I am the emotion, I am feeling, I am, but no, you're having it, you're experiencing, it's just energy, it's just particles moving through you. You are not the thing, you're experiencing that, it's flowing
Hmm.
through you. And when you have an ability to observe and to think through, this is happening and I'm feeling this, and that is happening and I'm feeling that, it you're not that emotion, and you are in a position where you can have the stimulus and response, but you're witnessing it, you're not identified. Too often I think individuals say, I am the item, I am the person, or I
Hmm.
am the feeling, and we're not. We are the human being, we're the lens that perceives. We are the vessel that feels and
Yes.
sees. We are the intellect or the brain that computes. But behind all of that, behind the brain, behind the body, behind the thought processes,
Yeah.
we are consciousness. We are consciousness. And the consciousness is all of it. Our consciousness is not in our brain, it's not in our body. Our consciousness is everywhere. And when we have that consciousness, we're able to be the eye in the eye. And it's many Eastern philosophies talk about, the third eye opening. And
Hmm.
it's the consciousness that witnesses the consciousness, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, it does, and it's a very transcendent thought.
Right.
It's wait, consciousness witnessing consciousness, what does that even mean? And it is a very transcendent thought that I can do nothing more than witness, and that's enough.
Hmm.
That's okay.
Right.
And they did I have my hourglass here. They did a study that found that most emotions only
Hmm.
last 90 seconds. It's about how much sand is left in the glass right here.
Wow.
90 seconds.
Right.
And that's it. And when I was at Franklin Covey, we had Dr. Daniel Amen, the
Hmm.
leading neuroscience or brain scientist in the world, done more fMRI studies than
Hmm.
anyone else. And he went on tour. So with the Franklin Covey tour, and I had the chance to talk to him before he went on stage, and he said, I can get anyone out of a full blown panic attack in 3 minutes or less.
Hmm.
And I'm like, that's like world changing. How do
Right.
you do
Yeah.
that? I've seen people in panic attacks and they are completely irreconcilable. They're just distraught, unreasonable. And
Hmm.
he's like, yeah, give me 3 minutes and I can get them completely out.
Right.
And I'm like, how do you do that?
Hmm.
And he said, I just have them breathe. And I'm like, okay, no, really, how do you do it? He's like,
Right. I guess it
he's
did.
he's like, no, I just have them breathe
Right.
because the emotion
Right.
lasts 90 seconds. After that 90 seconds is what's called the refractory period. And the
Mm.
refractory period is the time that we get to choose, what am I going to do with that emotion?
Hmm.
Am I going to move that emotion into a mood?
Yeah.
Am I going to release that emotion?
Hmm.
Am I going to act on that
Yeah.
emotion? Am I going to internalize it? Am I going to suppress it? We have
Hmm.
this choice at the end of that. So the first 90 seconds of
Hmm.
breathing is just getting through the emotion,
Yeah.
just witnessing it without acting,
Hmm.
just letting it flow. And then the other minute and a half is okay, as I'm breathing, as I'm getting my neurology back
Hmm.
into position,
Right.
now I'm going to breathe through what to do with it.
Oh.
And
Right.
so again, that metacognition of saying, hey, here's an emotion.
Hmm.
I'm not going to act on it.
Hmm.
I'm just going to watch it. I'm just going to be a witness. And when I'm done, then I get to choose. Then I get to choose
Beautiful.
when it's not overwhelming, when it's not
Hmm.
just crushing me anymore. After that 90 seconds, then I'm going to choose.
Hmm.
What am I going to do with it?
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful place to be.
Hmm. Powerful. Powerful.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about particles, but I don't think we've actually defined particles. Tell me what you mean by particles.
Yes, I remember when I first brought this up, the host said, "I'm never going to forget that phrase, manage your particles." But it was my intention was to create playful language around the stuff of life,
Okay.
reality, and so my research, as I mentioned earlier, around what is reality. Well, reality is subatomic particles, oscillating, vibrating frequency particles. It's the stuff of life. And so the language manage your particles is really about nodding at the science of reality, subatomic particles, vibration and energy. The slower particles create solid things, and faster particles or thoughts. And I wanted to create an easy, playful language for folks to recognize, what are my thoughts? What are my feelings, my beliefs? What am I feeling in my body? My relationships with an individual, my relationship with a team, my relationship with organizations, my leadership, all of it. What is all of it? It's all particles.
Hmm.
It's the stuff of life. And what is particles? Well, particles are love. It's love because particles always say yes. So if I have this mindset of I'm a terrible person and I'm living in shame and I feel so bad, the universe, the particles are going to go, yes, yes, let me show you more evidence of that.
Hmm.
And if we say the stuff of life is particles, And I have the metacognition and I'm having the emotion, I'm feeling the emotion, but I'm not the emotion, I'm not identified with it, then I have the ability to do exactly what you've shared beautifully is pause in that space and make a different decision and not get lost in that emotion and think about how I'm going to carry myself or the decision I'm going to make or how I'm going to respond to that. But the particles are about the stuff of life. So it gives us a language to integrate everything that we feel, we think, we believe. And back to the positive trauma, put a little lightheartedness to it. Oh, you're not really managing your particles. You're having a reaction, and if you don't manage your particles, it could get violent. It's a way to jump in there and bring a little joy to this space, bring a little playfulness that balances the spirituality with the science. That sacred space of so many individuals have different thoughts and feelings and beliefs and paths and journeys, and they have very deep there's very deep diversity in how someone is anchored in their belief systems. But if we marry the two of spirituality and science in a way that is joyful and playful and creative, well, there's common ground there. There's common ground, and I'm managing my particles. Did I say something that hurt your feelings? Oh my goodness, my particles are all over the place. Or I'm
Oh
really thinking
boy.
some nasty particles. So the particles are meant to be a language. It's meant to bridge a gap where there is a lot of diversity in belief systems, and it's meant to nod at the science of life and give
Mm,
language to it. It's thoughts, it represents feelings, it represents emotions, it represents attunement, intuition, metacognition, our heart space, how our heart is also made of particles. And I always say particles always say yes, so we have to be very careful about how we
mm,
we think and feel, because not to judge it, but to say, oh, well, how are my particles moving now? What are my particles doing? And when I would teach programs on particles, I would find folks loved it. And it came to me through a moment of, as you would put, metacognition or intuition, where I was teaching a group of nurses, and they were very frustrated and very angry, and they had all this emotion because we were short staffed and there was all sorts of problems happening. And I remember just stopping in my own frustration, and I wasn't managing my particles at all. But I had this thought, and the thought was, I have to help these individuals. So I'm going to go with it. I'm just going to go into the fire, and I'm going to go through the fire, and I'm going to say what I'm feeling and thinking and intuiting at this moment. And it's in my first book. And I looked at this group of nurses, and the seminar was spiraling out of control. And I said, everything is out there. Everything is out there. And I drew on chalkboard this cartoon, and it had an antenna. And then I started to make all these dots all around this antenna. And I said, everything is out there. And you have a magnetic hat. And it was silly. And that magnetic hat is going to draw what we keep investing in. And if we keep feeding the tiger of the negativity, we're going to get more of it. And if we feed the tiger of the beauty, the healing, the transmuting, the positive energy around it, not superficial
yeah.
positivity, never, but get in there and let's transmute that into a fresher, more evolved, deeper, more attuned energy, transmute that into something altogether different. Then you're going to see changes that are miraculous, because we're in the way now. We're in the
Yeah.
way. The particles are all over the place. You're magnetizing all sorts of things. And they laughed, and oh, but it was a way. It came through me in that moment. I remember thinking, and I put this in my first book, I am going to get fired. This isn't but my gut instinct, my intuition I have to say this, it was pure of intent. I thought, this is the only thing I think is going to get us out of this space of, you don't understand, we're short staffed. You don't understand, the statistics are saying this. You don't understand. And the argument that went back and forth. And I thought, Let me couch it differently. Let me position the language differently. Let me anchor to something a little lighter, a little bit more playful, a little bit more joyful, a little bit more anchored to empowerment, not being defeated.
Hmm.
And that is what I got a nod from the universe or God. I got a nod after that because I truly thought I was going to be fired. And they said the favorite part of the program was the man with the circles
Hmm.
because
The
it was an
particles.
illustration. It helped them to understand. It helped them to feel differently and think differently about their thoughts, their feelings, their beliefs, their emotions, the environment around them, the person that they don't like or likes them. Well, maybe they have some traumatic particles in there. Maybe there's some unconscious trauma, and those particles, you're triggering their particles. Stop that, you know? And it allows the heart to open up. Because instead of getting locked up in the mindset of this is good or bad, or they're right or wrong, or it is or isn't, and you so beautifully put when you said there's nothing in what I communicate that says should or shouldn't. You opened up beautifully with that. And I don't say should or shouldn't, I say flow. Flow is the particles. It's the energy behind everything that we see in reality. And the more I dug down that rabbit hole, the more I found that to be closer to truth. I never say there's an absolute. I always say I stay curious, I stay interested, I have an adventurous but fearless. And the fearlessness comes from
Hmm.
a faith. It's faith. I am here to be, I'm here to help this group of people. So, what do I need to say or do that would be able to do that? And so the particles came in that way. And then, sure enough, I wrote books and taught ever since then on that concept.
That's so beautiful.
Thank you.
One of the unique dyads within the counterfeit emotions
Mhm.
framework is that um, every every dyad is part of a pendulum.
Mhm.
That in the center you have the authentic. On one side you have the overregulated emotion, and on the other is the underregulated emotion.
Mhm.
And one is opposite, and one is counterfeit.
Right.
So to put in context,
Mhm.
you have love,
Yeah.
right? Love is the authentic. The opposite is hate,
Mhm.
but the counterfeit is lust. And the opposite of uncentered is still uncentered.
Right.
No matter where you're swinging, you're still uncentered.
Right.
But when you bring it to the center, that's where you find the authentic. And all of them fit that pattern except for one. And that one is fear and faith.
Mhm.
Faith is the authentic. Fear is the opposite, but it's
Mhm.
also the counterfeit. Fear
Mhm.
is on both sides of that swinging pendulum.
Mhm.
And when I researched this, I was fascinated because I did not expect that, because
Yeah.
every other dyad is actually part of a triad
Mhm.
and it has those three. But with faith, it's, if you look at faith and fear, faith is a belief in something unseen,
Mhm.
which is true.
Mhm.
Fear is a belief in something unseen, which is false. Faith manifests your future, a future
Mhm.
you want. Fear manifests your future that you don't want.
Right.
It creates a future you don't want to be a part of. But faith does the exact same thing. It creates a future that you do want,
Mhm.
that is full of that beautiful energy, that flow. And it's fascinating to look at the two, because I was like, wait, what is the counterfeit of faith? It's
Right.
also fear. It's
Mhm.
the opposite, but it's also the counterfeit. And understanding that was so mind opening, just like, holy cow, fear
Yeah.
does the exact same thing. It looks and acts and feels like faith, but it does it in this destructive, disconnecting way.
Right.
And I love that you were acting on faith.
Yeah.
That's where you were at.
And it's thank you. And it's just so beautiful to see the two areas because you can get caught up in thinking that it's fear and it's not.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
wonderful.
So if you were to say how someone can go from trauma
Mhm.
to positive trauma, how would you say what would the piece of advice you would give them to go from trauma to transition that into positive trauma?
I would first say, let's really look at the unbelievable amount of pain you might be in. Let's look at the truth of what is in the moment. What is really happening? If the trauma is a physical trauma, a mental, or an emotional, what is truly happening in this space? Let's just be here. Let's just be here for a moment. Let's pause and acknowledge that what is current just is.
Hmm.
It just is. And if there's pain attached to it, or there's anxiety attached to it, the moment we go in to fix a severe trauma right away is the moment we are losing holding space for it.
Hmm.
Profound trauma is the dismantling of that human being. They are just shattered. So there's just the space. So when we have that shattering, the true witness doesn't, in my experience, go in to fix it or tweak it. They hold space. They hold steady space. They allow that energy to be chaotic. They allow that energy with the parameters of holding that space to say or do or feel whatever it is that they're saying or doing or feeling in that space. And by acknowledging that and holding that space powerfully and anchored in your heart, and with the wisdom of metacognition, the wisdom of not all the thoughts, the beliefs, and the analyzing, but that higher mind, you hold a container for that person to truly heal. And they start to feel within their body who they are, what hurt, what is hurting. And then they start to find themselves a little bit. They start to connect the dots. Where have I been broken? Or where am I lost? Or what trauma is coming out from inside of me that isn't even mine? It's epigenetic. It's from ancestors prior to my incarnation, and it's coming out. And I'm looking at that, and I have to get to a point where I journal it, I process it, I do the research to find out what it is. Processing it is incredibly important in the healing journey. But that raw moment holds space. The second piece, hold the space. The second would be to then allow processing with great tools. And how do I process?
Hmm.
And that's where truly understanding what happened with the right tools, with the right advice, with the right therapists, those individuals that are truly trained in those spaces to walk that person back to their strength, their accountability, and their empowerment. And then once that emotion is transmuted. So first, hold space. Second, really bring in that intellectual, gorgeous content and clarity, so that individual gets clarity in the processing chapter. And then the third piece of it is to get to that more playful place is when their emotions are regulated, when they have done the work. They did the deep dive. They've uncovered a lot of what they needed to uncover, and they're making sense of it. It makes sense. They're able to see it as a gift. And sometimes it's time, and sometimes it's seeing the dots connect over another experience and another experience, and you start to see patterns. And then it takes time to look back and say, oh, that's why that happened. I didn't realize that positive trauma until after I lived a couple of chapters and I saw the hand that came in to help me. And it wasn't until time went on. So that's that string of faith. If you have faith and it's a string, you hold on to that. You hold on to that faith in the place that you're being held, the place that you're understanding, and you're transmuting that energy. And then when you start to use that positive or that trauma to help others,
Hmm.
then it becomes a tool to help others. Because if you've
Wow.
transmuted it, you're a different set of particles. You're different. And that is when you can bring in the humor. It doesn't negate it, and it doesn't make it less profound. But if you're able to take a trauma and you're able to use that to help other people, then whatever caused the trauma, an incident, an individual, a heartbreak, a loss, there is always a sacred connection involved.
Mm,
There's always a sacred relationship involved.
I love that. So, to restate, the formula for changing trauma into positive trauma is number one, hold space for the pain.
Hmm.
Number two, dig into your soul, journal, go to a therapist, dig. Number three is find joy and have that belief of this is for my good.
Yes.
And then the last step is to reflect, because oftentimes when we're in the trauma, we
Right.
don't have the mindset, we don't have the heart set to be able to say, okay, this is wonderful, I really love this pain right now, this is so good.
Right.
Then be able to reflect back, to be able to say, okay, I see that this was for my good, and now I can have faith moving forward that the next trauma can also be for my good.
Right.
Mhm.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Thank you so much, Kristen. That
You're
is
welcome.
so wonderful.
No.
And I feel that.
Oh,
And I can tell you feel that.
yes.
And that peace is the only emotion that has no counterfeit,
Right.
is understanding that peace. What brings Kristen Mackey peace?
Oh, what brings Kristin Mackey peace is seeing the life that I have helping someone else. If I have experienced something and I'm
Mm,
able to see a person be more authentic because of me, then everything I've been through and everything I've read, everything I've learned in my trials and tribulations, all the stuff that makes us human. If there's a person that is more authentic because of me, whatever it is, then they're closer to their truth. And if they're closer to their truth, I'm going to get choked up again. If I can facilitate somebody being closer to their truth, I have raised their frequency. And that gives me peace.
I feel that. I feel that, and I understand that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hmm.
Hmm. Now I'm not going to be able to do my closing because I'm all choked up.
I have back in my eyes.
Uh, Thank you for your beautiful heart. Thank you for showing love, and
Hmm.
thank you for doing the work yourself to be able to get to this place that
Thank you.
Kristen Mackey is at today, to be that vessel for so many others.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Curtis, and for the work. Now I'm a mess. That you do. The balancing of such a genius concept is just so needed in the world, and it is an honor to be here and to help contribute to that.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us one more week on the Counterfeit Emotions podcast and hearing this beautiful message from Kristen on how to transition trauma to positive trauma, how to flow with life, how to tap into love and joy. Thank you so much. And please, if this episode helped you, share it. Share it with someone that is dealing with trauma in their life. Share it with someone that is going through something hard right now, and help them make the transition from trauma to positive trauma. Till next week,